It's amazing.
Get ready, people. Get ready.
Look at this. I want to have this body.
I had to learn how to swim. Yeah.
I have my Amina Muaddi shoes, and then I have my Brandon Blackwood and systemic racism bag here. It's this purple little number. I love it.
Nerdrotic.com.
We hope you enjoyed the last Disney Marvel product. Now get ready for the next Disney Marvel product. Remember when we used to get excited about a Marvel film? Imagine 10 years ago if someone told you that there would be a Black Panther movie where he fights Namor. My nerd head would have exploded. Unfortunately, this wasn't made 10 years ago. It was made in current year, and well,
let's talk about that diversity and the representation.
Oh, here we go again. Representation. Representation.
Representation. Representation.
La representación, representaciones, las representaciones, en la representación, representaciones, representation.
Representation. Representations. Represent. Representation.
I'm a piece of representation in gaming, and see representation on the big screen and to
Feel represented.
Represented.
Represent.
Representation.
Represented. They're representing.
Representing.
This representation.
Exciting, right?
I mean, it's not something that we do because it's a political move, but it's because it's really good for the story.
So many people are going to feel themselves represented in this.
It's too white, our television and movies.
NANI? We got a female Black Panther who looks like she needs a cheeseburger, and a Namor that looks like he needs to mix in a salad.
I like to eat. Is that such a crime?
Admittedly, we did get some dad bod representation, so I feel seen. Fact of the matter is, superhero films under Disney Marvel are devolving back to the Trial of the Incredible Hulk days, but worse. But I will say, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is a fitting season finale to the MCU. We got good girl bosses, we got bad girl bosses, we got girl warriors and girl scientists because we need women in STEM.
You know what? Let's also talk about these young Black geniuses that we will get to experience.
Yes. She's a genius. She's amazing. A genius 19-year-old MIT student. You are a genius, and geniuses tend to get into a lot of trouble.
MIT educated genius.
Female genius.
A genius, a super genius.
A female genius, and like the greatest warrior in the world.
What there wasn't a lot of was men. Not sure what happened to all the dudes in Wakanda. Maybe they went off to get a pack of Salems and never came back. Oh, shit. I don't know if I'll keep that one in. Up front, the film's worst offense, I mean, aside from being a Black Panther sequel with no Black Panther, is it's boring. And it's most certainly woke, maybe on the level of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
You've got to do better, Senator.
I mean, unless you're a big fan of multinational corporations that like to thank concentration camps in China lecturing us about colonialism. And let's not forget that this is the same multinational corporation that covered up Chadwick Boseman's face with a mask on the poster for China. So welcome all 592,000 of you out there, plus the 43% that haven't subscribed yet. Let's review the Smokey and the Bandit 3 or the Waiting to Exhale 2 of the MCU. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, the sequel to Black Panther without Black Panther.
I like it. You need to be conscious of the way that you look. Walking around here with that ash on your head. Oh, it's funny. You look good.
But you know, it's not just Black tech geniuses. We're getting women at the forefront of this.
Which I love.
I know.
Which I love.
I don't know you. What is your name?
The
beauty, the strength, the intelligence.
Yes.
The intelligence. I am so excited for little Black girls to see this one in particular, even more than the first one. I'm so excited for us.
Calm down a little bit. Bring it down a notch.
T'Challa dies off screen of an unspecified virus from an unspecified location. Because Killmonger had destroyed all of the heart-shaped herb, Shuri attempted to resynthesize it because apparently T'Challa's powers had faded, but she was too late. This is followed by a funeral. So we're off to the races with 2 hours and 41 minutes of plot-driven, task-oriented product. Mix in some genuine loss and grief, followed by a lot of sitting around and talking about feelings, and a whole lot of what Hollywood's idea is of the consequences of colonization. The film opens up with some colonizer mercenaries attacking the Wakanda Mali outreach station. Mali, Africa. I hope the Wakanda outreach was to teach Mali not to keep their little girls from going to school and not to kidnap them and force them into marriage. This is intercut with them getting chastised very well, by the way, by Angela Bassett's Queen Ramonda. And yeah, there are some decent performances in this film that get weighed down by all that plot and the sheer Disney of it all with all the identity politics and shoehorning in characters that shouldn't be there. If there's anything you want to compare this to, I would say Iron Man 2, but it's not as good. Then there's another attack on another facility in the dark. This time it's the the Talcans attacking a U.S. research facility that just so happens to have a vibranium detector. And from the looks of it, it appears that the Talcans aren't that isolated. Maybe Dr. Fauci got to them too. And the reason I'm talking about this scene so long is because it's the one I actually liked. I loved the siren song, getting people to kill themselves, and then Namor kills somebody. And if you squint, and because it's in the dark, it almost kind of looks like Namor, and that's the only time he does in this entire film.
El niño sin amor, por eso le dicen Namor.
¿En serio?
El niño que creció sin amor, Namor.
I am a Spanish genius!
Briefly though, let's circle back to that United Nations scene, and as good as an actress as Angela Bassett is, it doesn't make it any less cringe. Oh look, we found some men! Only to make them kneel before Queen Ramonda, who returns the mercenaries to the United Nations and then warns them not to mess with Wakanda or its vibranium because she's worried about what the rest of the world will do with it. Quick reminder, Wakanda is a nationalistic ethno-state with a force field wall around it that picks its leaders through hand-to-hand combat and not the will of the people, through their isolationism completely ignoring the other African nations that were suffering from war, starvation, and disease for centuries, and turned a blind eye while they were being conquered by colonizers, who recently allowed their throne to be usurped by a psychopath. After Shuri and Queen Ramonda returned to Wakanda through the bongo and DJ activated force field, they decide to go on a walkabout to discuss the passing of T'Challa, and that's where they're confronted by Namor. And we get this classic clip.
This place is amazing. The air is pristine. A protected land with people that never have to leave, that never have to change who they were. What reason do you have to reveal your secret to the world? Who are you? I have many names. My people call me Kukunkan, but my enemies call me Namor.
Right. And we finally have enough set up to let the task-oriented plot develop. Namor blames Wakanda and T'Challa for bringing vibranium to the world, even though the world already knew about it.
This one? No, that's just a prototype.
What's it made of?
Vibranium. It's stronger than steel and a third the weight.
So he blackmails Wakanda into abducting and then eventually killing Riri Williams, young female POC super genius prodigy who invented the vibranium detector. Or Namor, the boy who grew up without love and turned into a toxic male, will wage war on Wakanda with his superior forces that they just take his word for. Eventually, Wakanda sends the warrior woman Dora Milaje Okoye and the female prodigy POC super genius Shuri to go find the female prodigy POC female super genius Riri Williams. And yes, they are exactly the same character, but just when you think Disney Marvel couldn't get more cringe, why just have one girl who is the key to everything when you could have two girls who are the key to everything? Which brings us to this infamous clip.
I'm warning you, do not take another step toward me. See how they teach the children to treat their guests. Put the spear in here. Who brought a spear in here? I like it.
It's all right, princess.
Small girl. I am going to give you two options. You can come to Wakanda, conscious or unconscious.
You need to be conscious of the way that you look. Walking around here with that ash on your head.
Oh, it's funny. You look good.
Surprisingly enough, Okoye completely fails at her job and eventually gets fired for it. And even though the Talcans blackmailed the Wakandans into going and abducting the girl who was the key to everything to eventually kill her so they would keep their society safe and secret. They decided to just go out in the open by jumping off a bunch of whales on a bridge in public to abduct the girls who are the key to everything. You think that sounds bad? Try watching it. But I've got to give it up to Disney Marvel once again. After taking, admittedly, two B-list characters, Captain America and Iron Man, and turning them into household names, they unbelievably took the Black Panther and not only made him a household name, made him a top-tier character. And how do they follow that up? By killing him off screen and making the MCU a household name. Then it's a race to have the women of Wakanda, because there's no men anywhere, save the girls who are the key to everything, so two peaceful utopian societies won't go to war with each other, and then one of them eventually with the rest of the world, all over keeping vibranium from the white people. Now, the plot does stop every 10 or 15 minutes so women can sit around and talk about their feelings, and so they can remind us that T'Challa is dead. And this is the point where the film gets a bit exploitive. I'm sorry, did I say a bit? I mean a lot. I think the tributes at the beginning and at the very end of the films were done very well. It's everything in between this 2 hour and 41 minute mess that gets, again, exploitive. There's a good 45-minute stretch where nothing significant happens in this film. It's just performing tasks to move plot forward. And many have said that this film is 45 minutes too long. I would argue you take out that 45 minutes and this is still boring. For the sake of your time, which I value, and my sanity, which I also value, and quite frankly, it's hanging on by a thread, I'm not going to do a full breakdown of this movie like I normally do, because it would go something like this. Shuri is sad and won't talk about her feelings. The Queen is sad and can't get Shuri to talk about her feelings. Okoye is sad. Nakia is sad. Riri Williams is really smart and built a vibranium detector in school. How? Don't know. She also built an Iron Man suit with an arc reactor out of spare parts. How? Don't know. We'll just go over some of the highlights. After the Talakans abduct the girls who are the key to everything, the film just decides to stop and go into full exposition mode as Namor tells his entire origin from in utero to Shuri. A retconned, risk-averse, brand new, intellectual property issues avoiding origin that has nothing to do with the comics. In the beginning, my mother and father got busy and made a little niño. Of course, my father dies because this is a Disney film. And then my mom took some vibranium ayahuasca and I became a mutant. Well, that would make Joe Rogan proud, but not Bill Everett. After just meeting Shuri and then telling her his life story, he gives Shuri his mom's necklace, which just so happens to have the one thing she needs to become Black Panther at the very end of this film, vibranium.
How convenient.
Then there's our prodigy POC female super genius Riri Williams, who's more of a plot device than a character, only to exist to set up the next Marvel thing. Of course, she doesn't have a father because this is the MCU. But there is one thing worse than her character existing at all and existing in this film: her costume. This, ladies and gentlemen, is your replacement for Iron Man. Good luck, Disney. Admittedly, it is appropriate that the poster child for SJW Marvel that helped bury the publisher is in the season finale for the MCU. Then there's the CDC compliant and body positivity Talakan. And yes, you can absolutely tell this was a film made during COVID. We did get token white guy Everett Ross, and we did find out one important piece of information. He used to be married to Madam Hydra. Oh yeah, she was in this too because you can't have too many girl bosses. Other than that, Martin Freeman's American accent was a little off in this film, and he only existed to pass on exposition through phone conversations. All this followed up by one of the single worst final acts in any MCU film. After Namor attacks Wakanda and kills the Queen, Wakanda decides to take the fight to him, this time with a Black Panther. I just 3D printed a heart-shaped herb because I am a brilliant prodigy POC, female of science.
She's a genius.
100-pound soaking wet female Black Panther. That's right, you get about 12 minutes of the female Black Panther in the Black Panther sequel. There's a big messy fight where most of the Wakandans drown, and then they decide to stop fighting. After Shuri gets reaved by Namor, she somehow defeats him and shows mercy because she understands the underlying theme of this entire film. These two peaceful utopian cultures are just victims of colonization. And then the film ended and I finally took the nap I had been fighting off for 2 hours and 40 minutes. After I woke up from that nap, a harsh reality kicked in. I'm not getting that 2 hours and 41 minutes back, so don't waste the time. I was also left with a lot of questions, can't get to them all here, but here's just a couple. Are mutants in the MCU really going to come from vibranium ayahuasca? Did having 2 girls who are the key to everything actually get women into STEM? And the biggest question of all, where's Namor? The only semi-positives I can say is they tried very hard to have a more serious tone, but it ended up being just melancholy. Not that I was missing that cringe Marvel humor, because I wasn't. As I said before, the actual tributes to Chadwick Boseman were done well, and the mid-credit scene was pretty good. And that's about 3 minutes of the film. Other than that, there was cringe dialogue, except for this one line.
You do not sneak into my country and tell me what is fair.
Based. Sloppy editing, sloppy directing that went right along with the storytelling that was both too busy and slow as fuck. And yeah, there were a lot of women in this film, and that would have been fine if they actually acted different from each other, but we had a lot of the same characters. The aforementioned girls who were the key to everything that were POC female prodigies of science, and the rest of the Wakandan cast was soulful saint, regal, stoic, empowered woman, with the side of Victoria Alonso. Wakanda Forever, or Women Forever, perfectly sums up the MCU and the current problems with Disney Marvel. Always setting up the next thing, bloated, soulless exposition, piss-poor effects, piss-poor storytelling, and forcing a bunch of Z-list characters who are essentially a bunch of scabs who will never ever be able to replace the starters. You should have recast Black Panther. You should have recast Captain America. You should have recast Iron Man. Again, you made these characters household names and then you killed them off and expected people to accept the Z team. That's the same experiment you tried to pull with the all new, all different Marvel in the comics, and it completely failed. And surprise, surprise, you're gonna get the same results here. Looks like Wakanda Forever is gonna have a decent opening weekend on the low end of their reduced projections, but there's no way to spin this. This is more Disney diminishing returns. And as I said in my last Disney Marvel video, this is not just a Disney Marvel problem, it is a Disney problem. Mix in the Lucasfilm apathy and mix in Disney taking a side politically with their not-so-secret agendas, and well...
Happening today, a group of Disney workers vowing to walk off the job all over fallout from Florida's new parental rights and education bill.
I pledge to be a better ally for the LGBTQ+ community, apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be, and committed to ensuring that our company lives up to its values. I meant every word, and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Numbers missing on both revenue and adjusted earnings per share. Revenue coming in at $20.15 billion versus expectations of $21.26 billion.
He's got to be fired. That's pretty cut and dry.
You're firing Bob Chapek? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
I know what you did. You're a damn pedigree. All right, just get the hell out of here. I got a goddamn campaign. And the one thing you do care about. Okay, then I quit as your son.
So I just left seeing Wakanda Forever, and I'm pissed. I am pissed because if pushing an agenda was a movie, this would be in the forefront of that. This was Woman King on steroids. If you think that I'm gonna believe a 100-pound black woman soaking wet is just an almighty warrior and can just body dudes like it's no tomorrow, come on. Instead of Wakanda, it should have been called Where Are the Men? Because they was not there, they were not present, and the ones that was there was weak. But all the women that was in the movie was just brolic, built, strong Hercules. What is this saying to us? Perpetuating the idea of the strong black woman and a subservient black effeminate man. And this movie does not represent what African culture is. It doesn't represent what our culture needs to be. So, nah, I'm good on Wakanda. Where all the men.